Yes, Elia presented me. Thank you very much for having me. I think, if I'm not wrong, that I am the first speaker who has a technical background, which means that I don't have the health or psychology background about autism, but I think this will make this interesting because we can exchange our domains. And the project that I'm presenting here is actually the project that I carried out during my PhD thesis, which has some few years ago, but I think it's still relevant and definitely within the scope of this seminar. Can you go to the next slide? The next one, because Elia presented me already, and the next one, because this is also a presentation. Yes, so I work on assistive technologies for people with different difficulties, and originally during my master's I worked with Down syndrome, but then during my PhD I focused on autism spectrum disorders using emergent technologies. Emergent technologies is any technologies that are not yet popularized. So back then in 2018, smartwatches were not as popular as they are today. They were getting quite popular, but they were considered emergent technologies. Can you go to the next slide, please? So the idea of this project, which is called Tic-Tac-Tea, but then the application itself is called Time Watch, was a smartwatch application to help kids with autism spectrum disorders to self-regulate their emotions. The issue about this is that if the general public thinks about a person with autism, most of people think about this fictional character from the favorite series who has difficulties reading other people's emotions, which most of you know better than me. It's not even the main feature of autism. And even if we just focus on this phenomenon of difficulty of reading emotions, which is called, if I'm not wrong, alexithymia, reading other people's emotions is not as problematic for them as the difficulty to read, understand, and regulate their own emotions. And teachers in special education schools know this, and they do training for the kids to help them solve this issue of difficulty in self-regulating emotions. And the way they train them to address this is through paper instructions or any physical instructions. So the teacher would prepare visual materials individualized for every kid to show them anytime they detect they are having a panic attack, a temper tantrum, an anger episode, a stress episode, so they can understand the instructions, the step they have to take to get back to a more relaxed or more functional state during the day. Because the lack of self-regulation in the long term takes them to really serious mental health issues related to depression and anxiety. And in the short term, when they are having a temper tantrum, they pretty much lose the day they are having at the school or at home. So the teachers need to have this material prepared, adapted to their communication abilities, and individualized related to the what works for them. As you can imagine, this is really demanding in a real setting because they would get they need to have this material prepared. The teacher needs to be able to detect these episodes in them, and then they need to have the time to dedicate it to this particular individual, stopping the attending the other kids in the classroom, and also have it close to them so they can use it and apply to the kid in real time. So you can imagine this is really not efficient or effective even. So the application that I did is called Time Watch, and I normally like to show it with a use case scenario. If you can go to the next slide. Well, the next one, because this one explains emerging technologies, as I said before. So the use case, let's see how we can do this, because we have to like keep going to the next one. Yes, you can just go ahead slowly and I can try to explain. So this is Helen. Helen is 15 years old and she's particularly scared of dogs. She has been diagnosed with autism spectrum disorders, and anytime she sees a dog in her environment close to her, she gets really temper tantrum and anxiety and panic attacks. So her heart rate increases when the dog gets close, and this she detects some emotions that she doesn't understand and she doesn't know how to handle. So she gets disrupted, her day gets completely messed up. She doesn't want to communicate anymore with her peers, with the teachers, with their families, and she tends to isolate herself because she gets overwhelmed by these feelings that she doesn't understand, and she doesn't want to be there. She wants to disappear, and it really messes up her day. So this is her individual problem. The thing about Helen is that she finds peace and she really likes singing, especially the songs from her favorite shows, her cartoons, and she really gets relaxed when she sings her favorite songs. Her caregiver, Arthur, knows about this, and he knows that he can use this to help her with this kind of episodes. So he installs Time on Watch, which is an application that goes into her smartwatch and his smartphone. So he installs the application, and then in the next step, he prepares some pictograms that he knows she understands that will help her go through these episodes. And the pictograms will tell her to observe the smartwatch first, then to sing the songs that she remembers and she likes. Yeah. And then it's like, yes, to observe the smartphone, sing the songs that she like, and then to sit down somewhere, and then to do some systematic breathing techniques, inhaling and exhaling. And then she would get a pictogram showing her positive reinforcement that she has done okay, and then another pictogram that she knows because they are standard in Spain, showing that she has finished the self-regulation strategy. So when Arthur creates these pictograms in the phone, it gets synchronized automatically with the smartwatch of Helen. And next time she has one of these episodes, she of course will have the same feelings again. She will get stressed, she will get panic attacks, she will go back to her isolation because the smartwatch will detect this increase in the heart rate. But then she will see in this device that is vibrating on her wrist that she has to look at the screen, do the things that she has been taught to do because she understands this language. And then hopefully by doing these things, the heart rate will decrease, and then the smartwatch will stop suggesting her to do these activities. And then with time and practice, she will be able to get back to her isolation, go back to her activities, and also with more time and more practice, when she sees a dog, she can be maybe only scared of the dog, but not of the dog plus the overwhelming feelings that she gets after that, which is the big part of the problematic. So that's the idea behind Time on Watch. We can go to the next slide. So we followed an expert-centered design because to develop this application, both the original idea and the evaluation was carried out with several psychopedagogical centers in Madrid that I will show in the results. Although I think the results is not in this presentation, but yeah, we can go to the next slide, please. And we had a full team surrounding the development and evaluation of this application. Besides the final users, who were the individuals with autism spectrum disorders and the educators, we had the technical staff, which were the developers of the smartwatch application, the analysts that designed the whole visual aspects, and the technical observer that participated in the experiments. We had all the domain experts, which were clinics validating the threshold of heart rate that we use to detect stress episodes, educators and professionals of autism who instructed us with the pictogram use and the self-regulation strategy structure, and also the domain observers, the psychologists and pedagogists that observe the individuals with autism in the experiments. We can go to the next slide. So important features about the regulation strategy were the importance of having start and ending points. So when the application detected this increase of heart rate, they asked the users to start their self-regulation strategies. And also we have clear pictograms showing that this is finishing. This is important related to alexithymia, because alexithymia is an issue related to the executive function, and difficulties in the executive function of autism are related to not understanding properly what's the beginning and the end of a task that they need to do. So we wanted to have this really clear in the application. Can we go to the next one? And we also worked a lot in having a simple, understandable visual metaphors of time and ideas. So the ideas part was kind of solved because we used this standard bank of pictograms that many schools in Spain use for kids with autism and other cognitive impairment. But also for the time we worked with this kind of virtual water that goes down, that like the smartwatch fills and gets emptied of water in an indication of time that is passing, or this like circle indicator of time going by that also proved to be useful after the assessment by the teachers. And we also used animations because related to the stereotypical behavior, this repetitive behavior that kids with autism have, they get soothed by observing specific animations of things they like. So, for example, we had, of course, this is not an animation because this is a static slide, but we included some repetitive animations of water and of other waterfalls that one of the users in our experiment used from a computer before and proved to be useful to get him relaxed. Can we go to the next slide, please? And also for other kind of users, we included some options, like, for example, letting them choose their self-regulation strategy. And this is really useful for those who are on the higher end of the autism spectrum and are capable of choosing their own self-regulation strategy, or maybe the ones that were not initially, but then they learn with the application and they get able to choose their favorite regulation, and then also a question at the end of the regulation to ask them, are you okay? And then this answer gets registered and we can check the self-assessment skills that they have about their emotional understanding, which is really useful and gives really good insight about their learning process. And those two are optional features that they can be configured or not to appear with the regulations. Can we go to the next slide, please? And this is how the application from the teacher or relative perspective looks like. They can choose any kind of pictograms from our bank in Spain, but they can also choose their own images. They can modify the color, the fonts, and do all the adaptations that they need so the end user understands everything. And in the third screen, we can see it's in Spanish, but it's the configuration about the different options that we can set for them. As some of them are the ones that I said before, other ones are like what kind of transition we want between screens, because the interaction options in the smartwatch is limited, and so on. Can we go to the next slide, please? Yes, and finally, after some regulation episodes have happened, all the information is synchronized automatically with the phone, and then the teachers and the relatives can check these episodes, and they can check the heart rate that they had before the regulation strategy, during and after, and not only the heart rate, but also the movement. So we can see if they were stressed or they were having high heart rate because they were doing physical activity, which could be a false positive in this kind of detection, and also if they moved a lot during the self-regulation strategy. Can we go to the next slide? So we made 3 experiments to check how this system worked. 2 of them were ethnographic case studies in 2 different special education schools, with 4 users over 200 hours of observation. And then the 3rd experiment was a usability study with the teachers. The ethnographic studies showed that the system is not only useful to detect and help them self-regulating independently, which they could. Almost 50% of the time on watch events were considered successful because they used the application by themselves, and then they got relaxed according to the heart rate and the observations made by the observants in the ethnography. But also we could detect some episodes that the teacher were not detecting before, because the emotional manifestation, the way they were manifesting these episodes, was not the neurotypical one. So one of them was just closing the fists and just they looked really relaxed, but they were having a panic attack inside, and the application was able to detect this. And other one was just having their ears covered, and that was another indication that the teachers were not paying attention to, but the system was. And then from the usability studies, we saw that we applied a system usability scale that turned out to give a result of 70, which is considered as a highly usable tool for the teachers to make these self-regulation strategies. And also it proved to be 3 times more efficient than the way they prepared their regulation strategies before. And that wasn't even counting the time they needed to gather the material, to prepare the papers, to print the pictograms, and so on. So it was really satisfactory from their part. And one of the teachers kept using the tool after the experiment, and it was published by the funding entity, which was Fundación Orange, which is a charity part of the phone company in Spain, and it can be downloaded for free. I think even outside of Spain, and it's in English as well.